Hello everyone. I'm sure everyone has built and deployed the SAP UI5 applications in the new environment, but not many people have built and deployed SAP UI5 applications in the Cloud Foundry. The reason for that is it is a little bit difficult to consume a destination in Cloud Foundry, and there are so many people that are confused as to how to create and consume a destination in Cloud Foundry. So the safer bet is they just deploy the application in the new environment. So this video, I'm going to show you how you can create and consume a destination in Cloud Foundry so you can build your application and deploy it in Cloud Foundry. So the steps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty project using the Business Application Studio. This is the new tool, and this is more suitable for Cloud Foundry. So it has all the tools that we need. So let's use the Business Application Studio to create this empty project. Make sure the project runs locally. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add a Northwind OData data source. And once we do that, we would have to modify the app router. And then we'll add some basic UI, make sure the project runs locally with this mock destination. Then we'll deploy the project to Cloud Foundry. We'll add a destination in Cloud Foundry. Make sure the project runs in Cloud Foundry with real destination. I'm sure this sounds a little gibberish right now, but it'll make sense once I go through all the steps. In the new environment, you do it pretty much using the neo-app.json file. That takes care of a lot of stuff for you, and then you create a destination in the new environment, and it's all plugged in pretty easily. But here the steps are you would have to follow these steps, but I'll go through all the steps and it will make sense. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to jump into my Business Application Studio right here. So right now I don't have anything in my projects in my workspace. So let's go ahead and create an empty project, and the easy way to do it is using the Yeoman generator. So the command for that is yo ec-ui5. Now, if the ec-ui5 is not installed, you can go ahead and install it as well. I think it'll give you the command to install the ec-ui5. So this gives me this template, and it tells me what do you want to name this. I'll call it my demo. And what namespace do I want to use? I'll use com.sap. Now what I can do is I will use the Fiori Launchpad on Cloud Foundry. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'll choose this option, Fiori Launchpad on Cloud Foundry. And the view type, I think the recommended is XML. So we'll take XML. How do you want your main view? I always call it app. And we'll use the CDN for getting the SAP UI5 resources. Would you like to create a new directory for the project? Yeah, let's do that. And so it can be my demo CF application. So this is our new thing. And it's going to go ahead and create this empty project. Okay, the project is now created. So let's open up the workspace. So if I go into my workspace, you can see that there is this project that is created. So I'm going to open it up, and you will see that there are a whole bunch of files that are created, whole bunch of files and whole bunch of projects that are created. What we are interested is in this UI module. So the UI module is our main project. And if you go inside the UI module, you will see the familiar web app folder, and you see the controller, the view files, and all of that good stuff. So let me go ahead and close all of this. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and open my package.json file. So the package.json file, let me open up the package.json file. So if you look at the package.json file, there is a whole bunch of scripts already here. And what I want to do now is just make sure that this app is working. Like right now, this is an empty app, but I just want to make sure that it is working. So what I can do is I can use the script right here. So I can do npm start, and this should run my project. So Oh, sorry, I think I'm in the wrong folder. So I will go into com SAP and then I will run npm start. And this is going to start my project. Okay, so the project is now started. So let me go ahead and open it in a new tab. And we wanted a Fiori Launchpad, so I'm going to click on the FLP sandbox.html, my demo CF application, and if I go in here, and there is nothing because this is an empty application. So far, so good. So now what I want to do is I'm going to stop running it. So let me go ahead and stop it. Let me clear. Now what I want to do is I want to add a data model. So right now I don't have any data model, but I want to say that, hey, you know what? I want to use this Northwind database. And there's a couple of ways we can do it. And these are the same steps that you would do uh, in the Neo environment as well. You would go into this manifest.json file, and here you would add your data source and so on. I think in Neo environment there is also the UI, so you can right click, open it up in a UI kind of like a UI mode, and then you can add your data source. Here what you can do is, if you know how to type it in, you can type it in. I typically type it in, but there is also this template that allows you to add the same thing. So it's called yo EC-UI5. So this is the same thing that we use to create the template project, right? But here now you add this colon and then you say new model. So basically you are creating a new data model. Again, these steps you would have done in Neo just slightly differently. So what is the name of your model? So this is going to be a default model, so we'll name it nothing, like don't give any name. We'll do OData v2. Yeah, so that's good. Two-way is good as well. What is the data source URL? So let me go to Northwind OData service. And if I go into my Northwind OData service, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to v2, and I'm going to copy this for now. Uh, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste that in here. So this is going to be the data source URL. Again, you can just say main service as well, I guess. And then inline is fine. Overwrite, yes, let me overwrite my manifest.json. And then you will see that if I go into my manifest.json, which is already open, it has added this data source. Again, this is the same thing that you would have done in Neo app as well. I just like to call it main service, so I'll call it main service here. And if I call it main service here, then if I go down to my default, I would have to change this to main service as well. Okay. Um, so this is something that you do in Neo as well, so no big deal. Okay, so now that we've added the data source, the next step that we have to do is, this is the first step where we do something different in Cloud Foundry. In Cloud Foundry, there is this thing called the app router. So the way things work in Cloud Foundry is the user, so let me kind of draw it out here. So when the user logs in or goes to your application, they don't hit your application right away. They hit what is called this app router. And this app router then redirects it to your application, right? So this is kind of how Cloud Foundry works. Now, when we want to go to the destination, the Northwind doesn't reside in your application. That's somewhere else. So that's here. So Northwind is somewhere here. So what we are going to tell the user or the app router is, if there is a certain URL that we want to go, um, if it has a V2 and stuff like that, then send it to Northwind. Otherwise, send it to the application. So this is what we're going to do, and kind of pretty straightforward. So I go into this access app.json, and right now there are no routes. But we are going to add a new route, and the route itself is a JSON object, or a JavaScript object. So I'm going to put the curly braces and start this object. And again, you can see that it's an array. So if you had multiple data sources, then you would have multiple objects inside of it. But what I'm going to say is source. So if the URL has this pattern, right? So what I'm going to say is if the URL has a pattern where it has v2 in it, because we know that this one has v2 in it. So if it has v2 in it, and this is like a regular expression, so anything with v2 in it, so that's basically what this whole thing does. And then we want to redirect to a different place, a destination. But we'll also add some authentication type. So we'll add, there is no authentication, and if there is this destination, we will create a destination called Northwind underscore API. And then CSRF protection, for now we'll just say false. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is if there is v2 in the URL, then I want you to send it to this Northwind API. Now we haven't really defined what Northwind API is, but at least we are telling this app router, anytime you see v2, send it to this destination. So basically that's what we're saying. And if it doesn't see v2, then it's going to, this app router is going to send it to your application. But if it sends, if it sees v2, then it's going to send it to Northwind. So pretty straightforward right there. Now, what this Northwind API is, we haven't defined it yet. So we will define it right now. Okay, so now if I run my application, it probably will fail because it doesn't know what this Northwind API is. Now, we still haven't deployed it to Cloud Foundry or anything. We're still running it locally. We just created this application locally, and we added a data source. And then we changed the app router as well, but we are still doing everything locally. And before I push to Cloud Foundry, I want to make sure that it is working locally, because deployment usually takes a little bit of time, like a couple of minutes or so. So I don't want to keep deploying to see if it works or not. So I want to run it locally to make sure it works. So for that, what I can do is I don't have the destination locally, right? Because the destination, we have it in Cloud Foundry. But what I can do is I can mock a destination here. So I can go to this ui5.yaml file, and I can kind of mock a destination. So right now you can see there is a empty array for destinations. What I'm going to do is, because I want to test it, make sure everything is working locally first before I move everything to CF. So I'm going to create a destination here, and this is just so I can test everything is working locally. So I'm going to call this, and the name here matters, and I have to give the exact same name that I gave in my app router. So the exact same name that I gave here, the Northwind underscore API, because you're defining this Northwind underscore API. Now here, so we've added this Northwind API. Now, what is Northwind API? So here I'm going to say, whenever you want to send it to Northwind API, send it to https://services.odata.org. So that's pretty much to this guy right here. So the app router will send the will redirect it to this URL right here. So we are set here. Now, right now our application is completely empty, so we'll add some basic UI just to make sure everything is working. And again, this is all, we're just doing it locally, um, and we just want to make sure everything runs locally. So even the destination that I've created, like this mock destination that I created with the name Northwind underscore API, is just locally, so I can make sure everything is working locally. So here, what I'll do is I'll create a simple list, and I'll have with items in it, and I will bind it to the products. And this is again basic S, SAP UI5, so I'm hoping you're aware of all this. And then what I can do is I can have a standard list item inside of it. And what I can do is I'll give the title as title equals product name. So I'm going to bind the title to product name. Now let me also make sure that product name exists in the OData service itself. So we have a basic UI, and if I go into here and if I go into products, and I believe it's there, and you can see that there is a product name, so I'm just binding it to the product name. Okay, so everything is set. Now let's see if it runs locally. Again, we can go into package.json, and we already looked at it. We know npm start is going to run this command UI5 serve, and that is what we want. And I will run npm start, and this should open up my application, and I'm going to open up my application here. I want to go into my Fiori Launchpad sandbox.html, and let me click on this, and if everything works well, I should see the data. Okay, so everything works fine locally, so I'm good to deploy now. So let me go ahead and deploy this application. Now to deploy the application, in Neo, what you would typically do is right click and say deploy application. But here right now when I click, there's nothing to deploy. So you have to run a few commands. Again, if you look at the script here, there is a build colon MTA, and that runs MBT build. So you can either type in MBT build, or you can type in npm run build colon MTA. So either one is fine. I think MBT build is much easier, but I'm just running this because it's there in the script. npm run build colon MTA. And this, what it does is it packages up everything, and it will create me a mtar file. And that's the file that we are going to deploy to Cloud Foundry. So I will be back. Okay, so the project is created. So if I go in, and there should be an mtar file in my MTA archives. Okay, so now I want to deploy this to Cloud Foundry. Now on the Cloud Foundry, I still haven't created a destination, so the application itself is not going to work in Cloud Foundry, but at least I can go ahead and deploy it. So the way I deploy it is cf deploy, so that's the command that I need to run, and then the file mta underscore. Now it's an under MTA underscore archives, and it's called my demos. So that's the file that I want to deploy, and I'm going to deploy it, and I'll be right back. Okay, the application is now deployed to Cloud Foundry, but like I said, we haven't created the destination in Cloud Foundry, so it's not going to work. But let's go ahead and check how the application is there. So I go into applications, and there should be my demo application. So my demo application is there. So I go in here, and if I run it, like I said, it's not going to actually work because it's and it has the app router has the authentication and all of that good stuff. But if I go into my application, there's no data because we haven't created the destination. So let's go ahead and create the destination. Now here, if you go into this service instances here, you will see that it has created a whole bunch of artifacts here for you. And one of the artifacts that it has created an instance called my demo underscore destination. So all of this got created by your app, like by this, by deploying this application. So I go into this my demo application, my demo destination, and this is where I want to create my Northwind underscore API, that destination. So I go in here, click on destination, and I create a new destination here. And I will call it, and make sure you call it Northwind underscore API. Otherwise, your application won't work. Now here again, you want to say http colon services.odata.org. The internet, there's no authentication, new property, and this is all something that you have already used, done in Web IDE system, and I can call it Northwind underscore API itself. Now, I don't know if I need to call, like if I do need these properties, because we're not actually using Web IDE, but I'll just do it any case because that's what I've been doing before. So Web IDE enabled, yes. Again, I don't know if I need all these properties. And Web IDE usage, and I will call it odata underscore gen. Now I know that there is a new property that I need to add, and it is called HTML5, and I don't think it's in this drop-down list. Dynamic destination. So HTML5 dynamic destination, and I will call this true. And I will save this. So now I have created this destination. Just let me make sure if the destination is working. So I'm assuming it is working. Web ID enabled true. Everything looks good to me. Now what I can do now is I can go into my destination, and so there is this my demo destination that we have, and I can go in here and I can oops, I can go ahead and make sure that it is linked to my application. So this destination, there is this actions button, and it's already linked to my application. So we should be all set. So it's already set. Okay, so now if I go here and if I reload this page, and hopefully we should get some data now. Um, well, maybe not. Let's see what's wrong. Okay, so let me go into my application. Okay, let me quickly check what I did wrong. So I go into my demo application, make sure it is bound to this destination. So it is bound to this destination. Let me look at the destination one more time. Maybe I did something incorrect. So let me go here. Let me check this Northwind API. Check connection. I think, okay, I think I did, it needs to be HTTPS. Let me double check. Yeah, it's HTTPS. There is that thing. So this should fix it, I believe. So now let me make sure this is saved. Check connection. Okay, 200. Okay, so previously it was returning a 301, which is good. So now I think we are on the right track. So I go into my demo application, and just let me restart it, just because we made changes to the service instance that was bound to this application. So let me go ahead and restart, and then once it comes back, then let me go ahead, open this in a new incognito window, just so nothing is cached, and then let me log in, and I should get to my Fiori Launchpad screen. So okay, and hopefully this time I get the data. Okay, cool. So everything seems to be working. So this is how you would build an SAP UI5 application and use a destination and deploy it to Cloud Foundry. Cool. Cheers, guys.